A scary, thieving bully demands that I take him home in order to give him my fundraising earnings. So I decide to maliciously comply, leading him directly to my neighbor, who just so happens to be a former gang member, who puts my bully in his place in a beautiful way. Here's what happened. So I was in middle school in the 90s. I loved growing up then, and even though there were gangs in my area, I generally avoided trouble. One of my classes had this big field trip planned, and they had us selling chocolates to raise money for our trip. I was pretty good at it, and I was selling at a good rate. I would take the public transportation bus to school, and my stop was about 2 blocks from my home. I got off my stop one day with my box of chocolates, and there was this older kid, probably 16 or 17, who was pretty big for his age, just hanging out right there. He saw me and came towards me. The guy is very clearly a gangbanger. We call him Peso, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, where you from?" Now, he was asking what gang I was from. It's not the first time I get challenged like this, so I just reply by saying, "I'm not in a gang, man. I'm just a junior high kid." Peso looks at my box of chocolates and takes it from me. He says to me, "What's this?" I tell him it's nothing and it's something for school. He opens the box and sees a bunch of dollars in there. He grabs the bills, which is maybe $15, which is my sale for the day, and takes a bunch of chocolates as well. "Tomorrow, you're gonna give me $20 more. If you don't, we're gonna have a real problem." I walk away feeling scared and really mad. I realize I'm gonna have to pay back the lost money for my birthday money, and I definitely did not want to give this guy any more money. I think about it and I decide I'll get off at a later bus stop from now on, opting to just walk a little bit more just to avoid this guy. And when the next day rolls around, this is what I do. I stuff my box in my backpack just in case, and I exit about 2 stops later. I don't see the guy and I think I have solved my problem. Then I get to the liquor store a block away from my home, and who do I see but this overgrown idiot Peso. "Hey man, you didn't forget about me, did you?" I said, "Look man, I don't have any money right now. I don't even have my chocolates. I left them at home." Now, I really shouldn't have said that. "Okay, let's go to your house. You're gonna give me the money or something else if you don't got it." I began getting nervous. My mom is at work and my grandma is home. I definitely don't want to bring him home with her there. I glance at him and notice the tattoos on his arms. And at this point, I saw the perfect opportunity for malicious compliance. I told him that I don't think that's a good idea. I then said, "Why don't you just let me go, man?" Peso then grabs me by the collar and says, "I tell you what to do and you do it. You understand?" So I nod my head and I tell him to follow me. Now, it's time to give just a little bit of background. The neighbor that lived in the house next to mine was a veteran of one of the biggest, most notorious gangs in my city. He was in his 40s and a really chill dude. He loved my grandma because she would often share plates of food she made with him and his wife. And he was fond of me because I taught his 8-year-old boy how to play baseball. His son had a disability, a problem with one of his legs. So most other kids wouldn't play with him, but I often did. Let's call my neighbor OG. OG always had a bunch of guys over at his house. He made sure they never caused any problems, and they were all respectful towards my family in particular. Now, back to Peso. The tattoos on his arms is when I realized he was in the same gang as OG. I have a big smile on my face as I'm walking home, and Peso asks me, "Why are you smiling, idiot?" I say, "No reason," and I keep walking home. As we get closer, I see a bunch of guys hanging out at OG's house. Peso narrows his eyes, then smiles as he recognizes some of the guys. We get to OG's house, and Peso says, "Wait here, let me talk to my homies." OG is sitting on his porch, and Peso starts greeting some of the guys and then heads towards OG, greeting him in a reverential manner. OG notices me and says my name. "Hey, what's up?" Peso turns to look at me, and I say, "Peso told me to wait here. I have to go home and give him money." OG then stands up and says, "Why do you have to give him money?" I say, "Because he told me yesterday at my bus stop that the $15 in chocolate that he took from me wasn't enough, and I had to give him more today." Peso begins to speak. "You know this kid, OG?" OG gives him the scariest look I've ever seen and tells him to shut up. OG then looks back at me. "Is this from the chocolates you are selling?" I say, "Yes." OG then asks me how many chocolates I have left to sell. I say about 50, and he tells me not to worry. Peso is gonna pay me for the 50 I have left, plus 20 for the day before, and an extra 50 for my trouble. He tells me to keep whatever else I sell. He then tells me to go home, and Peso would be back later with my money. Well, about an hour later, there's a knock at my door. Peso's standing there, and he has an envelope in his hands. He says, "Here's the 120, little homie. I'm sorry I messed up. Do you have Nintendo? I brought you some games." Now, when he said that, I just stood there stunned, thinking how I never would have guessed that getting robbed had so many benefits. I didn't see Peso too many times after that, but whenever I did, he would wave at me and he never bothered me ever again. Wow, talk about making friends with the right people. That is seriously an insane situation, because who Who would have thought that your neighbor would somehow be over the guy trying to rob you? And one of the comments in this post itself pretty much put it best. They said that sometimes it pays to have friends in low places. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. So good for the original poster for using their head and getting out of that situation. Because I know if I was in their shoes, I would definitely be panicking. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I found a hidden camera in my bathroom that has been secretly recording me and my 21-year-old niece. And at this point, I'm so disgusted that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so as the title states, I found a hidden camera in my laundry basket in my restroom. I'm a 30-year-old female and I've been married to my 33-year-old husband for 6 years. We've been together since I was 16 years old, and recently his family, namely his dad, his stepmom, and brother, moved into our 3 bedrooms. Now, I mentioned the number of bedrooms because after his family moved in, 2 months later, my niece and nephew asked to stay with us also, and this is due to their mom leaving the state that we all live in. So my father-in-law and his wife got a room, and my nephew and brother-in-law roomed together as well. So that left my niece rooming with me and my husband. It's a big room and we have our own restroom. Plus, my niece did not want to sleep in the living room and felt comfortable being in the room with my husband and myself. My husband's work schedule is different than mine and my niece. When he gets home, my niece and I are heading to work since we work together. One of the reasons my niece didn't mind rooming with us is because mostly it was just me and my niece that shared the room. He would just have Saturdays off, and my niece and I worked that day, so I'm always in the room with them. So fast forward to this Thursday at like 2 in the morning. I was using the bathroom when I noticed a blue light in my laundry basket which faced the shower. I looked through it and I found a camera attached to a portable charger. Now I was shocked and I was so confused. So I texted my husband asking him what the camera was all about. He looks at the message but doesn't respond. So I call, but I get no answer. So I get the camera, I break it, and I throw it all away. At this point, he writes me saying how I could either leave him or kick him out. I'm so upset by his actions and I'm really creeped out. I kicked him out, but I'm still planning on leaving by May. I only have a part-time job and I started to apply at more jobs for more income, but I'm still going through a downward spiral because I don't know who I married or how to tell my niece that she's been violated. I know he used the camera to watch her, but I don't know how long this has been going on. So I seriously feel so disgusted and I don't know what to do. Yeah, this is really messed up and I would not be taking this lightly. First of all, you need to get that camera out of the trash, get the SD card, and then go to the police. This is very serious and there's no way you should let this slide. Like, it doesn't matter that the niece is an adult. This is highly violating and so unbelievably disgusting. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be going to the police and being like, hey, this is what's going on. Because what your husband did is absolutely unacceptable, and there is no reason that he should get away with that. My entitled manager demands that I take no more overtime as she claims that I'm stealing time from the company. But then, not even a month later, she starts complaining that I'm not going the extra mile, denying in front of HR that she ever said I can't do overtime anymore. So I decide to forward some emails over to HR just to put my manager in her place, resulting in her quitting the job less than a year later. Here's what happened. So I've been working at this job for some years when I got a new manager. A month or so into her working there, she came into my office and told me I wasn't allowed to work overtime anymore, and if I have any issue, we can discuss it. The way she said it too, by the way, sounded like she was expecting this to really hurt me. I sent an email to confirm the conversation that we had, and her response basically said, correct, there is no more time theft. Now, I really didn't like that accusation. I usually stayed a little late by 30 minutes at most to finish up projects. A lot of projects come in last minute, and other managers were thankful for my help. So I quit staying to finish projects, and I wouldn't start a new one if there wasn't enough time. No real issues, but honestly, some projects started falling through the cracks. I let the other managers know that my manager told me no more overtime, and I'm just following orders. Fast forward barely a month later, and as I'm leaving for the day, she rushes to me asking if I can work on, and you guessed it, a last-minute project. It's potentially worth millions of dollars. I explained how I've got plans and I'm not about to be a thief. Well, the next day was too quiet. In the afternoon, I get a request to have a meeting with my manager and HR. Usually, you get a written complaint beforehand, so I'm a little taken off guard. I could at least be a little bit prepared. At the meeting, my manager reads off grievances like it's an intervention. She frames it like I have antisocial behavior issues. I'm insubordinate and I don't go the extra mile. If you let her keep going, I wouldn't be surprised if I I was somehow to blame for the company not reaching its goals. When she finally finished, and she had to have started writing this the night before and into the next day, I finally asked if it's okay if I have my say. I pointed out a lot was just her opinion, and I'm overall well liked. I always do exactly what she says. However, my manager likes to constantly move projects around while I'm working on them, and I'm not allowed any overtime. She then says that she denies ever saying this, so I forward the email to HR. My manager then starts backtracking that she didn't mean it permanently. HR then takes me off the call for a bit, and when they come back, it's just HR, and I start by saying that I'm not citing anything. They tell me let's agree to disagree, and that this has been one big miscommunication, and they appreciate all the work that I do. I asked to confirm if this was going to be held against me in any way, and they said no. They went on to say that if I can stay late sometimes, that's great, but it's okay that I leave after my 8 hours. Eventually, my manager later quit in less than a year, and honestly, I was very happy to see her go. Okay, the part of this story that really drives me crazy is the fact that the manager actually tried to lie in front of HR that she didn't say explicitly that you can't steal any more time. Like, this is why you have a follow-up email after a meeting with your manager in writing, so you can have this on file, on record, just in case they try to pull this kind of garbage. Like, this is absolutely insane. In my opinion, I think the original poster 100% should have put like a formal complaint in and been like, oh yeah, my manager definitely lied about having a no overtime policy. Because now she's trying to use that against you and be like, wow, you don't go the extra mile. Well, it's like, lady, you took the extra mile away. What are you talking about? It's like they want you to work extra and do all this overtime hours, but they don't want it to count towards your paycheck. So it's like, okay, which one is it? Do I get paid for the overtime, or do you want me to work for free? Because that's definitely not going to happen. So honestly, good for the original poster for having all their ducks in a row. If they didn't have that email at the ready to send to HR, then this really could have been a different conversation, because that manager very clearly wanted to play both sides of the fence. And unfortunately, it would have been at your expense if you didn't have that email. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he blatantly excluded my wife all over an argument that happened ages ago? Because right now the entire family has turned on me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the deal. My brother is getting married, and he's been planning this extravagant wedding that's way beyond his pay grade. He asked me to help out financially, and because we're family, I agreed. I'm not exactly rolling in dough, but I've done okay for myself, and I wanted to support him. Fast forward to last week, and he drops the bomb that my wife isn't invited. His reason, you might ask? His fiance and my wife had a falling out years ago over some really petty nonsense, and they haven't really talked ever since. I told him that's ridiculous. It's water under the bridge, and they're both adults who can handle being at the same event. But he wouldn't budge. He said it was his fiance's day, and she didn't want any negative energy. I argue that it is also his day, and as his brother, I should be there with my wife. It got heated, and I ended up telling him if my wife isn't welcome, then he can forget about my financial help. Now the whole family is blowing up my phone, saying I'm being unreasonable, and that I'm ruining what should have been the happiest day of his life. They're all on his side, saying it's just one day, and my wife can suck it up and stay at home. But I don't see why she should be punished for something so trivial that happened ages ago. So am I the jerk for standing by my wife and pulling my financial support for a wedding that we're being partially excluded from? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your brother and his fiance are being completely unreasonable. Like, for starters, it really seems like they're all being super selfish. They really want you to pay for this wedding, but also exclude your wife and for you to be okay with that. If I was in your shoes, I would be upset as well. There's no way I would take that. Also, why do you have to be the one to pay for everything? It seems like they're all ganging up on you, not because they care about your wife showing up to the wedding or not, but because the rest of the family doesn't want to pay for anything with this wedding. Like, it really seems like your extended family is only using this reason as a way to be like, yeah, you have to pay for it. Why would you do that? As if they care about your wife showing up in the slightest. I also completely agree with the original poster when they say that, yeah, they're both adults and they can absolutely both handle being at the same event even though they don't like each other. It's not like the original poster's wife is going to go out of their way to try and ruin anything. Chances are they're going to be in the background and no one's going to even notice them. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your family is being incredibly selfish for assuming that they deserve that money for that wedding. And in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would not only not go to that wedding, but I definitely would not pay for a single thing. My mom's boyfriend is ruining my relationship with my mother. And now, right before my wedding, he's causing drama by refusing to show up, all because my mom told him exactly how I feel about him. And I'm now at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My mom has been dating David for over 3 years. David is not his real name. There have been red flags since the beginning, and it's gotten worse over time. My sister and I cannot stand him, but my mom is extremely defensive about him and has made it very clear that she will always take his side. Whenever I bring up concerns, she said it's a misunderstanding or his sense of humor and we just don't understand. Before mom and David started dating, my mom was involved in mine and my sister's lives. She was always very involved in her grandchildren's lives and was even planning on building a home on my sister's land so she could live closer and be involved with the grandkids. My mom currently lives 20 minutes away from my sister and I live out of state, about a 4-hour flight away from them. David is just an awful person. My sister and I have tried to be supportive and forgiving and just be happy for my mom, but it's getting impossible to ignore it anymore. Here's just a few of the red flags that we've noticed. He always has an excuse about why my mother can't see the grandkids. I won't go into detail on this part based on the sensitive nature of some of the reasons, but it's always been a huge concern of mine. He's also a loser and a mooch, and most of the time that he's been with my mom, he's been unemployed, meaning that he lives in her house rent-free. He also bullies her. For example, on Christmas, my sister got my mom an Apple Watch, and he started making snide remarks, insulting my mother's intelligence and ability to use the watch. Another one is when my mom cooked her mother's recipe for some food that she liked, and he was insulting the recipe and telling her that she was doing it wrong. He is also in a ton of debt, but the reasons don't make any sense. They range from having a fake cancer diagnosis to his ex-wife, all the way over to his business partner stealing from him. One time when my mom was visiting me in Arizona, he told my mother he had COVID and told her that she wasn't allowed to come home. And this is the home that she owns and he lives in for free. She flew home and gave him a COVID test and he tested negative. He literally lied to her, and I'm not sure if it was a power play or some kind of attention grab. I also overheard him talking awfully to my mom at my niece's birthday party because he was mad my father was also there. He tried to get my mom to marry him after 10 months of dating so he could get her health insurance. I told my mother I did not approve of that decision, and I'm pretty sure she secretly married him, but I'm honestly not sure. My mother secretly moved him into her house after 6 months of dating and lied to us about it. Once he moved in, he made her get rid of all of her sentimental furniture and artwork, many of which were her late parents. My mother has never lied or hid anything from us before. This is all very new behavior for her. Everything eventually came to a head this weekend. Friday, I flew in for my uncle's funeral, and I only fly home once or twice a year. I was at my sister's house and my mom texted us asking if we had plans for dinner. We told her to come over. We had just ordered family-style Mexican food and would be hanging out. My mom said that we should just eat and she would swing by later. 5 hours go by and we don't hear from her at all. It's now 9:00 p.m. and I remember because my sister has little kids, so 9 p.m. is too late for guests to come over. I texted my mom and I asked why she didn't come. She said she got busy with errands but was on her way. I told her it was too late because the kids were getting ready for bed and having tantrums for being too tired. Yesterday, my mom came to my sister's house and I asked her what errand was more important than having dinner with me, since I never see her anymore. She then told us she went out to dinner with David and got some gas. Then my sister and I explained why we didn't like David and how we feel like my mom doesn't care about our relationships anymore. She doesn't even see her grandkids anymore, and we feel like a low priority, and we are concerned about him being an unhealthy person. I was so hurt and angry that she blew me off for dinner and then tried to hide it, and then she had dinner with him instead. Today at my uncle's funeral, my mom pulled me aside and said she talked to David. She told him our concerns about him being controlling and pulling her away from us, and she started crying and said that he is now refusing to come to my wedding in 2 weeks. I told her that his decision was just proving mine and my sister's point more, and that it was really messed up for him to bail on the wedding and a trip to Arizona. He had committed to a vacation house with my mother and her sisters. I understand him not liking me, but you would think that he would want to be there for my mother to make the day special for her. She has been so excited for the wedding. My mother started yelling at me and told me it's all my fault. She said I'm judgmental and accused me of lying and making up stories about David. I'm honestly so hurt and I've been crying all day. Although I'm relieved he won't be at the wedding to cause drama, I'm honestly deeply offended. And I think he is choosing not to come because he knows it will hurt my mom. She made it clear this is my fault and she is on his side. And now I feel like he will make her cut us out completely. I don't know what to do. I want my mom to be happy, but I can't support this relationship. What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like your mom is in an awful relationship. This guy is a freeloader. He lives in this house rent-free and he is using your mom. That's the only thing everything that's happening right now. And that is honestly so tragic because she doesn't deserve that. He bullies her, he talks down to her, he lies to her, he does all these awful things. And yes, he is 100% pulling her away from the family. He doesn't sound like a trustworthy person at all, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that you can do anything to change her mind. She's stuck in the middle of this, and hopefully one day she can see what's going on and come back around. So in the meantime, if I was in your shoes, I would try to keep things open and just keep inviting her. I would just keep saying that yes, you're welcome and I love you and I want you in my life, because I can only imagine what it's like living with David. That guy sounds absolutely awful, and I can only imagine what your mom goes through on a daily basis. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.